The New York Islanders got some good news on the injury front. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll talk about which lines have been clicking lately since the Barzal injury, and we have a full preview of both of this weekend's big games against Columbus and Buffalo. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone for being part of the Locked On Islanders family and for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Plenty to discuss on this weekend edition of the show. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, maybe you have a comment about something we've talked about, or a question you want us to answer, or maybe you have a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode of the show. Either way, feel free to send us an email. The email address, as always, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we are happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles. And you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. And I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So definitely make sure you reach out, join us, and great to interact with Islander fans game time or any times. I'll give you some instant insight and analysis. All right. Good news for the New York Islanders yesterday, Thursday. Who is back at practice, taking his regular shift on the second line? Yeah, that guy, Brock Nelson. Nelson back in action, did not appear to be affected at all by the injury. And here's what Anders Lee had to say. He got roughed up a little bit, but I know he'll be fine. He'll be good to go. We have a few days here for him to get back. That was said after the game on Tuesday, and with the Islanders having a day off Wednesday that allowed Brock a little time to rest, he was back out on the ice with his usual line mates for practice on Thursday. Now, Nelson admitted he did get 6 stitches near just above his right eye, and he indicated that on Tuesday at the game, by the time he was all stitched up, it really didn't make sense for him to come back into the game. So having Brock back is huge for sure for the New York Islanders. Meanwhile, Lane Lambert said this. No update, by the way, on Sebastian Aho, who is also considered, day-to-day right now with his injury. But when asked about Mathew Barzal, Lane Lambert simply said he is getting closer. And for those of you who are listening, well, that's in air quotes, closer. Okay. Sure, he's getting closer. If he's coming back in 6 months, he's still getting closer. Each day gets him one day closer to returning. It's a typical statement that doesn't really mean a lot, although it sounds good. But again, no indication yet that Mathew Barzal is actually skating or that he is really close to coming back. But again, it is optimistic. It is certainly a piece of good news that Barzy is getting closer, and hopefully he will be out there and ready to go at some point before the regular season comes to an end. Line combinations at practice Thursday: Horvat, Lee, Holmstrom, Nelson, Engvall, Palmieri, Pageau, Parise, Fasching, Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck. The defensive pairings: Mayfield, Pelech, Romanov, Polak, and Bolduc, Dobson, with Bailey, Johnston, and Wotherspoon as the extra 3 players. quickly wanted to address a question. This one comes from Ryan. Ryan wrote, what do you think the Islanders need to do to keep this run going and get to the playoffs? Good question, Ryan. Thanks for it. Realistically, keep playing smart Islanders hockey. Don't try to be fancy. Defense first. Get the puck out of your zone safely. Don't allow too much time or space. And then offensively, work off the forecheck, force some turnovers, and use those opportunities to create goals. You're going to need some great goaltending from both Sorokin and Varley. And I think that is the kind of thing that really is, what the Islanders need to do. We saw them do it so well in the game against the Maple Leafs earlier this week. And look, this weekend, here's the thing that I think the Islander fans need to be aware of. How important are these games this weekend? Because the Islanders are facing, two teams that are not going to make the playoffs if the season ended today. The Blue Jackets right now with the worst record in the NHL by total points, 51 points in 70 games. The Sabres just winning 2 out of their last 10, lost 4 in a row, and they are just 2 games above NHL 500. Sabres are 5 full games back of the Islanders, 10 points back with, yes, 2 games in hand. But when you're 10 points back with 12 games left on your schedule, that's not a good sign if you're the Buffalo Sabres. So here you are with a chance to put a little more distance between you and the teams that you're fighting for playoff berths. And look, the Pittsburgh Penguins, certainly 2 points behind the Islanders with 1 game in hand. As of Thursday night, Florida is 3 points behind the Islanders with 1 game in hand. Now they're playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. So on Thursday night, and we'll see what ends up happening in that game. But realistically, the Islanders still control their own destiny. And even if Florida and Pittsburgh win all the games in hand they have, which right now is not a lot if you look at it, it's 1. And in fact, by the end of Thursday, Florida will not have any games in hand. The Islanders will have a golden opportunity against these 2 non-playoff teams to add to their lead. And that is realistically what they need to do, is keep winning, put pressure on Florida, pressure on Pittsburgh, and see if they can somehow keep up. So, Ryan, thank you very much for the question. And we're going to talk a little bit more about these 2 games coming up this weekend later on in the show. We've got more to get to in addition to previewing both games. We're going to talk about this. Who do you think is the Islanders' second leading scorer in points since Mathew Barzal got hurt? The answer may surprise you. We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites just hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. And with Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. This offer is valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So the Islanders right now, it's been a little bit of a rough ride this season, but last month or so, this team has played very well. And even without Mathew Barzal in the lineup, they have managed to get back to basics, do the things that made them successful in the past, and it's worked. And look, I will say that even though he's not on the list I'm about to read, Bo Horvat has indeed been contributing to the success of the New York Islanders, even though he's not lighting up the scoreboard as of right now. So here are the leading scorers for the New York Islanders dating back to the time of Mathew Barzal's injury. Leading the team in goals and points right now, Brock Nelson, 6 goals, 10 points. Tied for the lead in goals with Nelson is Anders Lee. No surprise there. He has 6 goals and 8 points. But who is second in points? In between Lee with 8, Palmieri also with 8, 3 goals, 5 assists. 4 of those points, of course, coming in one game. And Zach Parise, 4 goals, 4 assists. But who has 9 points in between Brock Nelson and Anders Lee? If you guessed Hudson Fasching, you're right, and you're paying very close attention to what's happening with the New York Islanders. Hudson Fasching, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points since the injury to Mathew Barzal. And the thing about it is, Fasching has spent a lot of time on the third line. He spent some time on the fourth line. He spent a little bit of time, even less than one full game, but a little bit of time on the first line. And even though he's seen action on all 4 lines at one point or another, he has been a very, very useful piece to this team. And he's just been consistently playing well. And we saw when he was on a line with Casey Cizikas how well he developed chemistry with Zeke. And now that he's on a line with JG Pageau and Zach Parise, he seems to be getting a lot of really good chemistry with them. And here's the thing. I've often talked about Zach Parise and what his effort and the way he does things right, the little things the right way consistently. That's what's keeping him in this league at this stage in his late 30s. That's why that even though he is now either a second or third line player almost every night and is not getting major minutes like he used to in his prime, where he was on the power play and the penalty kill and on the top line, he has 19 goals. He needs 1 goal in the last 10 games to get to a 20-goal season. And for a guy like Zach Parise, who is now more of a plugger than he is a skill guy at this stage in his career, it shows you the effort. And it doesn't surprise me at all that we have Fasching and Parise and Pageau, 3 guys who all hustle, who all can be physical, who are all positionally sound defensively, forecheck like demons, go to the net, do the little things you're supposed to do the right way. What a great third line that is. Now, you have that as your third line. You have the identity line as your fourth line, which adds that physicality. And you have, Palmieri, Nelson, and right now Engvall on your second line. The only thing that's missing right now is Lee, Horvat, and you want Barzy back, obviously, because Holmstrom, even though he had a pretty good game against Toronto, he's not a first-line guy at this stage in his career. But look, hopefully the Islanders get get Mathew Barzal back before the end of the season. Here's what Brock Nelson had to say about Barzal's potential return. Knowing that we have Barzy hopefully going in the right direction and close is huge for us. You get a guy like that definitely changes things for us offensively and probably gives teams a little bit of a different look in terms of matchups and what they want to do. For us, a lot more depth for sure. So I think if you get Barzy back and it gives you 4 really solid lines, and it means there's a tough decision. I would think Holmstrom sits, but it gives Lane Lambert a certain amount of flexibility. And I mean, I love this third line of Pageau, Palmieri, and Fasching. It's just, Pageau, Parise, and Fasching. It just is a bunch of guys who really do the right thing and play a certain style that is so effective for bottom 6 forwards, but not your 4th line. And I love it. By the way, if you're wondering who the Islanders' leading scorer among defensemen is since the Mathew Barzal injury, Noah Dobson, 7 points, 2 goals, and 5 assists. But wow, it's just really good. And here's what Lane Lambert had to say about that third line right now of Pageau, Parise, and Fasching. They work well together. Zach and Pageau, we know all about them, but Fasching seems to be a really good fit for that line just with his strength, and he has some deceptive speed, some outside speed, and that helps him. So I love that combination. And I'll take it one little step further. Having Samuel Bolduc out there instead of Sebastian Aho is a better line mate for Noah Dobson. And we saw that on Tuesday. I think Dobson played a smarter overall game. And I think knowing that he has a guy like Bolduc who is big and who can handle things in his own zone a little better than Aho typically does, I think that gives Dobson a little bit more of a cushion, a little bit more of a peace of mind. And I think the fact that Bolduc doesn't have a lot of experience makes him say, I got to be smarter. So lots of things at play. And I think so far the Islanders have done a really nice job of finding ways to make it work without Mathew Barzal. And as we said in our question, our email, this is what they have to do in order to make the playoffs and maybe even go on a run. We've got more to get to on today's episode. We will preview both of these big weekend games, plus our Islanders' birthday of the day, an early Islander who really made a big impact in the 70s on this team. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The tournament is heating up, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drained. And yeah, you can use your knowledge of the Islanders as well on the FanDuel app. Just check out the odds for tonight's game against Columbus, tomorrow's game against Buffalo. It's all there at FanDuel. And FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 2 big games coming up this weekend for the Islanders. Let's get right to our previews. Tonight, Columbus, a road game for the Islanders, and they need to win it. Now, Columbus, ended a 3-game losing streak with a 7-6 overtime win against the Washington Capitals in Washington. That game coming earlier this week. They've had a couple of days off, just like the Islanders, and now they're rested and waiting for the Isles. Look, Johnny Gaudreau, he is the big name. Patrick Laine, Boone Jenner, these are the top 3 offensive guys on this team. But overall, you look at the numbers and you know why Columbus is struggling. They're 29th in the league in goals scored. They're 31st or next to last in the league in goals allowed. Their power play, 25th in the league, 19%, which, yeah, it's better than the Islanders, but it's still not good. And the penalty kill, 22nd in the league, only 76.3% success rate at killing penalties. The Islanders need to get their power play going, and this is indeed a chance for them to do that. Injuries definitely an issue. Zach Werenski, IR, Justin Danforth, Jake Bean, Igor Chinakhov, and they're all on IR. Sean Curley is out. We may see him tonight, but that remains to be seen, so check out his status. The line combinations right now. Top line, Patrick Laine, Johnny Gaudreau, and Cyril Marchenko. Boone Jenner centers the second line with Kent Johnson and Jack Roslovich on either side of him. Lane Peterson, Liam Foudy, and Emil Bemstrom of the third line. And from left to right on the fourth line, Eric Robinson, Curley when he's healthy, and Matthew Oliver. Meanwhile, on defense, Nick Blankenberg and Eric Branson are the top pair. Andrew Peak and Tim Burney, the second pair, and Gavin Bayreuther and Adam Boakfist make up the third pair. The goaltenders, Elvis Lives, that's Elvis Merzlikins, and Michael Hutchinson right now serving as the backup. Look, I'm not going to lie. This is a game the New York Islanders should win. They have already beaten Columbus in the first 3 matchups between the teams, although the Islanders tend to play down to the Blue Jackets. 3 games, all wins, all by 1 goal, one of them actually coming in overtime. But look, the Blue Jackets are one of those teams that is tanking for Bedard, and hopefully the Islanders can give them a little help in that department. Then Saturday, the Islanders return home for a 5 o'clock Eastern time game against the Buffalo Sabres at UBS Arena. That's an ESPN Plus game. And like the Islanders, the Sabres will be in a back-to-back. The Sabres are playing the Devils on Friday, so they actually have less traveling to do to get to UBS Arena than the Islanders will, who are coming from Columbus, Ohio. Sabres know how to put the puck in the net. They're third in the league in that department, but 28th in goals against. Their power play, 5th in the league, 24.6%, but the PK, dreadful. 30th in the league, 72.2%. Here are 2 games where the Islanders will have a chance to get their power play moving. I just hope that they do things to make that happen. And again, Tage Thompson is the big story. 43 goals, 88 points in 70 games for Thompson. And he is by far their leader. Jeff Skinner and Alex Tuck each with 30 goals. And Dylan Cousins has 27. We look at the line combinations. Thompson, Skinner, and Tuck, the top line. Cousins centers the second line with John Jason Peterka and Jack Quinn on either side of him. Tyson Jost, Casey Middlestat, and Victor Olofsson are the third line, with Peyton Krebs centering the fourth line. Zemgus Girgensons to his left, ex-Islander and Buffalo Sabres captain now, Kyle Oposo, to his right. Rasmus Dahlin remains a solid blue line man. He's the top pair with Cale Clegg. Owen Power and Henri Jakaharu are the second pairing. Riley Stillman and Ilya Lyubushkin are the third pairing. The goaltenders right now, Craig Anderson and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. So we'll see which goaltender goes. Whoever goes Friday, unlikely to go Saturday. And, you know, the Islanders, I think Varley is going to play one of these two games. If I am Lane Lambert, I probably go with Varley against Columbus and then turn back to Sorokin against Buffalo, a team that is much stronger offensively, but should be a chance for this Islander team to pick up 4 points over the weekend. They've got to get at least 3. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And yeah, Saturday would have been the 74th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Jean Potvin, the older brother of Dennis Potvin, and the Ottawa, Ontario native. Originally broke into the NHL with the LA Kings in 1970-71, then joined the Flyers and came over to the Islanders in a late season trade in 1972-73, played 10 games for the Isles at the end of the year in their first season, and then became a big part of the Islanders through the 77-78 season when he was traded to the old Cleveland Barons. His best year as an Islander, that's easy, 1975-76. 17 goals, 72 points in 78 games. And Jean Potvin occasionally even would step up and play forward. He did that in the 75 playoffs, opening series against the New York Rangers, and he scored a big goal in the third and deciding game. But his best game as an Islander, that's easy. January 22nd, 1976 at the Nassau Coliseum, a game that I always refer to as Potvin Fest. Why? Well, Dennis Potvin had 2 goals, 2 assists, and 4 points. Jean Potvin, our Islanders' birthday of the day, had his only career NHL hat trick. He added an assist, so that was a 4-point night and a hat trick for Jean Potvin. And yeah, he led the Islanders in this game with 7 shots on goal. Islanders crushed the Detroit Red Wings, who had Peter McDuffie in goal, by a score of 8-1, as the Potvin brothers just helped the Islanders crush the Detroit Red Wings. So big weekend of action ahead for the Islanders. Let's see if they can make good. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. Now make your second listen game to game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every contest from across the National Hockey League with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back Monday. We'll have our key takeaways from both of these games, the latest injury updates, and a lot more. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.